Hello, everyone. My name is Ahmad Ashrafi, and today we have a very, very, very interesting topic and two very special guests, Kenya and Kat. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Of
Ahmad.
course, of course. Actually, we did something that I don't normally do. We had a call before, so I already know a little bit about you, and there's a little bit more background to what we're going to discuss today. And I'm super excited because what you shared yesterday was inspirational. I think what you're doing is great. And I think that we're going to have a wonderful time together. So I'm really excited to dive deeper than yesterday.
Sounds good.
Both of you come from a very interesting, you have both very interesting backgrounds. And instead of me butchering your background, maybe you can introduce yourself and then we'll start into why you do what you do.
Um, my name is Kenya Burrell-VanWormer, and my background is in residential real estate. I've been in the real estate industry a little over 20 years, and during that 20 years, have done a little bit of everything in the industry, from association leadership and management to residential brokerage, and recently, over the past few years, got into the prop tech space. And so I've worked with a few startups and enjoy the future of this industry. Kat and I met just a few years ago because we were on the speaking circuit to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the startup space, specifically in prop tech. And over the years, we started to notice that those numbers that we were seeing with investments into diverse founders hadn't changed. And so last year, we decided, you know what? Instead of reporting these same numbers and not doing anything to be that change that we want to see, let's do something about it. And we created Equity Angels and we launched in January.
Fantastic.
I'm Katherine Winston. I've been in the startup marketing space since the 1900s. My first startup failed, learned a lot from that one. The next two were acquired, and then the fourth startup I worked for went public, so that was super exciting. After that, I started my own business, producing conferences around the world, connecting entrepreneurs with financiers in the film and media space. While I was starting my own business, I also helped my husband start his real estate business. So he was a realtor, first at Coldwell Banker, then at John Arrow, now at Sotheby's. Then we moved to Bellevue in 2020 during the pandemic. And after my events business, I decided to get back into the tech space. And that's when I met Kenya, as she had stated. And we started speaking at various conferences on DEI. And that's when we both decided that it was time to do something to change the narrative. And so that's what we're doing now through Equity Angels. When we started Equity Angels, we were trying to figure out, well, what is the best way that we could make a change? So when Kenya and I decided to launch Equity Angels, we wanted to focus on the things that we had strengths in. And our goal was to provide access to capital, access to talent, and access to education. So what we're doing now is we've launched different programs. We have a fundraise ready Accelerator program so that we can provide access for underrepresented founders to capital. And then we've got our executive placement piece where we connect startup companies with fractional executives because, as you know, startups don't really have the budget to afford full-time CMOs and CTOs. So we try to bridge the gap by connecting them with talent that they can resource at a part-time level. And then we've got educational resources where we, put together webinars, events, things of that nature.
And let's go into why you started into preparing entrepreneurs to become funded. Where was the problem? How did you identify that? And why did you decide that that was going to be your first pillar?
The reason behind Equity Angels is because of the speaking engagements that we were involved in. We would speak about the disparities in funding across the board when it came to underrepresented and underestimated founders. And when we look at reports like McKinsey report that showed how diversity really enhances the overall profitability, it's not only good for business, but it's profitable, right? To have diverse voices, diversity of thought, diversity of perspective that contribute to organizations, it makes a difference. And when we look at startup founders who may not mirror how the two of us look or the true nature of the real estate industry, that was even more motivation for us to say, you know what, let's do something about it. Look, at the end of the day, Community, access to capital, networks, those are super important in this space. We've said this before, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you in order to really be effective when it comes to the startup space.
I like
You
that.
know, accessing funding, that's just one piece of it. You've got to be able to present yourself, be pitch ready, be fundraise ready. And there's so many more components there. And that's what we enjoy doing with Equity Angels is providing that soft capital, which is really critical to the success of early startup founders.
For sure. And I think that this soft capital concept is incredibly important, especially when you're talking to inclusion, because I really like what you mentioned. It's not about who you know, it's who knows you.
Absolutely.
And if you're not in the table or if you're not invited to the right place, you might have the greatest idea and that's why you don't get funded. So, and I love the idea of equity angels, and also the word equity is so important to both of you. So maybe can you tell us a little bit more about how this concept came to life, and when was that moment where you said we should do something about this? How was that bird?
So equity is actually a very special word for us. It was our theme when we first met at the conference a few years ago. Our talk was on leading with equity. So when we decided to name our company, we really wanted to focus on that key word. But it wasn't just about equity from a sense of fighting for social equity. We also wanted to fight for economic equity. And that's why we created that Fundraise Ready Accelerator program. We really want to help founders not just raise money, but also succeed in their businesses.
And why did you decide to attack this? Like after your four successful, even if your first startup was a failure, I call it a successful because you definitely learned from it. And Kenya being 20 years in the industry, why did you go to this? Why is this burning for you?
Sure. What's interesting is in the real estate industry, I think we were some of the latest adapters to innovation and technology. So we're kind of behind the curve when it comes to doing what's next. And that's because change is hard. Some people do not want to embrace change. There are some real estate practitioners right now, if they could still use the MLS books and give you a key to show their listing, they probably would. But we're out of those days, and we're starting to see that innovation is really helping to create efficiencies for us as practitioners in the industry, and it's starting to drive the direction of the industry. So being innovative and being forward thinking is something that's always been very important to me as an individual, and being able to work with others who have that same mindset and embrace the fact that, look, change is happening to make our industry better and stronger. And as an industry, we are embracing change. We are embracing technology and innovation, but we were one of the slower adapters to really do that. So when Kat and I were at an innovation summit, and I'm going to say this, Ahmad, we were in Miami. We were at the Fontainebleau at the NAR IOI summit last year. And that's when we decided it's time for us to do something. A lot of what we do in this industry, or just in life in general, is about timing. We've been meeting for 3-4 years, but something felt right about doing it now. And so when that hits you, you got to move on it. And that's
I love
exactly
it.
what we did.
I love it.
And for me too,
And
it was a personal journey. Like it's something I've been passionate about all my life. I came to America, as a sixth grader. So for me, I feel like as soon as I landed here, I've been fighting for for my rights and for opportunities. And even from a young age, when I was in high school, I started a dance group because a lot of us friends who were hip hop dancers didn't have a space to express our, artistic passions. And so we had a dance team, and we had, different cultures join that dance team. And so since then, diversity has been a big thing for me. Even when I was producing conferences around the world, connecting investors with entrepreneurs, I would host conferences for film financiers and filmmakers to connect female filmmakers with investors, just because there wasn't enough, there weren't enough filmmakers and independent producers who were female that were getting funded. I even noticed that filmmakers or female filmmakers would ask for $500,000 for a project, and the same project would be pitched by a man, and they would ask $5 million for it. So, it's like all throughout my career, I saw these needs for just underrepresented founders in all different types of sectors that needed the kind of help that we're providing now through Equity Angels. And just to, reiterate the point that Kenya mentioned, we're big on soft capital. So yes, we provide access to capital. We ourselves don't invest in the companies. We provide them access through our Accelerator. We introduce them to investors every month. But what's really more important for us is to be able to empower them with the right business plan, with the right go-to-market strategy, value proposition, TAM, SAM, SOM, all these different tools to help the founders truly succeed as businesses. So yeah, it's been a lifelong work for both of us. But yeah, meeting Kenya at that conference was probably the greatest thing that could have happened to us.
Well, thank you. I do want to build on what Kat said.
Sure.
100% of everything you just said, Kat. And we hear this phrase a lot, but it's true. Representation matters. When you can't see it sometimes, you don't think you can be it. Being in the industry for a few years and going to national events and conferences over the years, I would not see anyone on stage who looked like me. Not because someone who looked like me was not capable or competent, they weren't asked. The days of saying that you can't find those people are over. You have to be intentional about representation, and representation can mean a lot of things. That's gender, it's diversity, it's race, it's everything, right? Like, being intentional about representation is something that is demanded today. I can't say we had this conversation a few years ago, but we're having it today. And that's refreshing to see panels. Okay, excuse me, Ahmad here, but I'm going to say manels. For years you just see these manels and it's like, no women are, at this level in this industry. And then it was diversity, from ethnicity. It's like, you're telling me there's no Latino or Black or Asian or Hispanic, individuals that understand this industry at this level? That's strange. I appreciate that the tide is turning, but we still have a lot more work to do. So to Kat's point earlier, being able to reach out to these startup founders in the prop tech space who are bringing ideas and innovation and real change to our industry, we want to see them succeed. In fact, we have some companies within our portfolio right now that are doing amazing things to transform this industry. All they needed was a little bit extra support, a little bit of extra confidence, open up their networks. That provided the opportunity for them. So it's really about building a community. And I think that's what Kat and I really enjoy about this too, is we have a community of advisors that work with us, but we're also building a community where people feel seen, they feel heard, and they are able to be their best.
This is a wonderful example of taking matters into your hands, seeing a problem, living it yourselves, and then doing something about it. And this is like part of the American dream. I think it's about making your place in the marketplace. And it's funny because I'm an international too. I'm also an immigrant to this country. And as an investor, I also felt that there was a huge barrier to entry. And I would joke around and I would say my dollars are not green, as green, or maybe they don't have. I don't know what's the difference.
So
Yeah, and actually, this is something I'm very passionate about because my company Infinity is a bridge for people that are international to access the best deals in the U.S. And especially because of this point. And what I noticed, it goes a lot with what you just said. The three barrier to entries that I really saw was, first, it's money. Money can be solved. Money can be aggregated. Money can be syndicated. Or if you have enough, you can participate. You can be at the table. The second one is knowledge. It's very difficult to be in an industry that is sophisticated, that even though you said that it's late to innovate, in other places it's very, very sophisticated. That you can take a course and learn. You can ask a friend. You can hire someone that has experience. But the third one, which is the one that you alluded to, and the most important, is who you know. And who knows you, which is I like even more. Because when someone has a good project, has a good deal, has a good investment, usually it goes to their circle. And if you're not in their circle, you'll get passed along projects that everybody passed on. So you basically say, oh, real estate is actually not a good industry, and think, no, you're not invited to the best deals. So I'm very passionate on the same level as you, is that there is a barrier to entry And I think that inclusion is very meritocratic. You have to, like, no one's going to open the table for you just to warm up the seat. So you told me a little bit about your program and that it's an intensive, extensive program. And you mentioned this soft capital. And I would say that it's actually a bigger investment because time is our most limited resource. So how do you choose who to back?
So when we launched our Accelerator program last year, we basically had about a month to make our choice. And what we did was we just, we put out a press release. We got on a few different interviews with local trades, went to a couple of conferences, and just tried to spread the word as best we can, and took in applications that way. So we had a website, everybody, applied for it. And then for the next 3 weeks, we reviewed the applications. We had certain criteria. So you had to be a, pre-seed company. You may have had family and friends funding. You needed to have an MVP. And a few other things. But based on, the criteria that we had, we reviewed the applications, and then we interviewed about 25 of the founders.
Wow.
And in interviewing those founders, one of the key things that we were looking for was, of course, the product that they were building, the problem they were trying to solve, the solutions they were creating. All those technical things were important. But I think more important was the fact that they would be open to improvement, to being coached. So that was a big thing for us. Kenya, feel free to chime in on a few other things that were important to us.
Sure, no, absolutely. It's interesting. You have to be in a position to where you're ready to receive information. You can share information all day long, but if someone does not have the correct mindset to understand and embrace what they are receiving, it's for naught. And it's hard to understand with just, a form that's completed or one interview to really know who is going to be, receptive, what kind of culture are we creating, right? And what kind of community are we creating? And I believe that those interviews, they were time consuming. I mean, it's time consuming to get to understand who someone is in just a few minutes, understand their product, understand where they are in their business, and understand if they have the time commitment to be engaged and involved in the program. After we were able to do that, then we could narrow it down just a bit. And at the moment, our focus is prop tech and fintech, anything related to the built world and real estate. Doesn't mean that we're not going to branch out a little bit later, but we were very firm on staying within the industry because of our backgrounds and the level of expertise that we could bring to the cohort. So that was something that was really important to us.
And how do you judge if someone is mentorable or coachable? How did you feel, or what was that process like? Because this is something that everybody needs, and it's like, financial modeling gets you so far. Every model I've ever seen is always like this. You can project anything, but this soft skill, this understanding, especially if you're doing soft capital, you should also maybe the soft skill, what you're talking about, is so important. So how did you find that, or how do you determine that? Is it a gut feeling? How does that
Really
work?
just was from the interview process. Like, we spent at least a couple hours on each of these interviews, and it was a team of 5 of us. So it was Kenya, myself. We have 3 advisors on board. One who specializes in technology, another who specializes in strategy, and another who specializes in HR. And she actually was key to us, sort of judging the coachability of some of these founders, just because she has interviewed so many professionals throughout her life. So it is part gut, but we also had we had our methods. We had a chart of ratings to just figure out who really would be the best candidates for this. So yes, coachability was the most important thing, but in addition to that, we had a few different things on our metrics, and so all of us would vote 1 to 5, and then from that we were able to mathematically and scientifically measure who should be on the program.
There was some instinct in that too, though. Come on, let's be real. A little bit of instinct, but we did have a scale.
Yeah, and to Kenya's point, it's just it's a little bit of gut, a little bit of math, a little bit of science, and then culture. Who are these group of founders going to be able to not just get along because we're spending 2 to 3 hours a week together, are they going to be able to even help each other? And so that was an important thing for us. Part of what we do during the Accelerator program, we have one part of the week is more on the educational stuff. We've got program mentors coming in for all the strategy work, the tech work. But then the second part of it is our office hours. So for that part, that's more for our mental wellness check-in. It's where we talk about imposter syndrome, and we talk about how, crazy it is to be a founder and all the various things, all the ups and downs of being a founder, because it feels like, sometimes it feels schizophrenic to be a founder. You've got your good days, your bad days. So finding the balance between all the right founders was also a component as we searched for the right cohort.
That's a huge part. I think maybe the unspoken part of entrepreneurship
Yeah.
is the idea is 1%, the execution is 99, but within execution, the right mindset and the craziness and the ability to sustain, I guess, a no for a long rejection for such a long time, and coachability goes along to that, right? It's a very difficult process, and I definitely can relate. And how does that side work? Like you said, office hours, mental, but do you think that that's like a more important part, or how equal important, or what is the first thing you focus on when you're in a pre-seed stage?
Well, if I can just backtrack just a bit, I was going to say that it's really important for our founders to understand they aren't alone, and understanding that someone else has been in their shoes or has experienced something very similar. And I think that's something that was a big takeaway for us from this first cohort, is that ability for them to be able to understand that the rut that I'm in right now, it's temporary. It's just a temporary situation. And they had others who were in their same position, same place, understand where they're coming from. So being able for us to lead with empathy and with understanding. And again, the mindset that you mentioned is so important. We all have good days and bad days, and that's okay. They're not permanent or forever. It's just a very temporary fix. But for those founders to understand that they not only had a safe place to discuss some very detailed pieces of their business with people they trusted, it made a huge difference. One of our founders recently graduated from Harvard with a math degree. So he was the one that was able to help everybody with financials. It was fantastic having him. Listen, that's not our strength. We know that, and understanding where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are too, right? Being able to build and lean in on your strengths, and then having the support of others that can also support you.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a crazy and simple network effect that happens when you join an accelerator. Mm-hmm. What was the biggest surprise to you once you started?
Well, I think even before we started, the biggest surprise and frustration for us was when we did announce that we were taking applications in. It was mostly males who applied, which it's like great. There's lots of people applying, but we had about 20% maybe females applying, and that was frustrating for us. So, and surprising, because we're like, hey, we're a female founded accelerator program. We would have thought they would all shown up. And we actually had to pull teeth and really get our network to recommend, female founders to us. So I feel like that was one of the biggest surprises early on as far as running an accelerator program. Other surprises, Kenya, want to chime in while I think some more?
I think one of the other surprises for us was really having a basic understanding of how important it is to present yourself well. To realize that the investors are investing in you first and your business secondary. If you can't help me fully understand and articulate what you are doing, you're going to lose confidence in the people that you're presenting to. So I think that's something from the very beginning, that we had a great group, but really helping to refine their pitch, helping to refine the details that are important to investors who are looking at pitches all day long. Why is yours different? Why are you the right person, or why are you the right team for me to invest in? So really being able to take a deeper dive into who they are and help them understand the why. I think it's interesting. Sometimes we forget to start with why. And if you all follow Simon Sinek, that is one of the practices that really helps provide direction to what we do. So really helping them to understand their why and to hone in on making sure that they are presentable, credible, have that confidence, and really shine when they're in front of investors.
I think another pleasant surprise, if you don't mind me adding, was that a lot of program mentors just showed up. Like we had so many volunteers raising their hand and saying, "How can I help?" And that was so beautiful to us to just like see everybody from the community. Just we were getting so many, inbound emails, and we were even getting texts and phone calls. It's like, oh my God, they really must want to talk to us. So the support was surprising, and in a great way. So that definitely has been a wonderful thing for us, and we're so grateful for that, to have all these various advisors, subject matter experts come to the table and be part of our weekly sessions for the Accelerator program. And then even leading up to demo day, we had quite a few folks who just really wanted to figure out a way they can help, because again, like not everybody has the money to invest. So this was such a great way for them to invest through their time, their soft capital.
When we talk about supporters, if you don't mind me adding this, having allies are truly important. And from the very beginning, the Miami Realtors said, "We love what you're doing. We want to be a part of this." So having your industry professionals who understand the value of what you're bringing to the table was just fantastic. So Miami Realtors was great. The team at Blueprint, Martin Kelly, from day one, he said, "What can we do to support what you're doing?" And if you know about Blueprint, it is the largest built world conference for prop tech, period. It's fantastic. And they just had a conference in September. And we were fortunate enough to be able to bring our startup founders to kind of end our program by presenting their companies and doing a pitch, like a demo day at Blueprint. So grateful for people. Again, we talk about it's not what you know, but who you know. People like Martin Kelly, the team at Inman News who had us on stage in New York to talk about what we're doing. It's those people in the beginning who believe in you and your mission and want to be part of the change. There's a saying, I think it's Mahatma Gandhi, who says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And we've embraced that wholeheartedly by creating Equity Angels.
Wonderful. Really, really inspirational what you're doing. And I'm pleasantly surprised at your surprises because I think that the help is there. I think entrepreneurs are a tribe, and to use inclusion into it, it's like a tribe with no gender. Like entrepreneurship is not he or she or the others. It's really we recognize each other, and we and the thing about entrepreneurship is a tribe of people that want to help you. So I think what you're doing is incredible, because as I've been on the other side as the entrepreneur who starts, you think, wow, you're alone, and I'm the only one that's suffering, and is it this hard? Should it be this hard? I'm sure there's an easier way. How did other people do it? You're always constantly questioning yourself, and then when you join an accelerator like yours, you're part of the community. But then there's a broader community that everybody is willing to embrace. And I actually think that, I've said this in a previous podcast, that I try to spend 33% of my time with people that are above me, people that are mentors to me, people that I learn from, 33% from peers, and 33% from people that I can be a mentor. And it's such an important part of life, not only for your business, but an important part of your life, because when you have someone, a role model, or someone to show you the way, it doesn't matter what you look like anymore. There's no disadvantage anymore. There's no like, why did I not get a seat at the table? It's like they can show you the way, and that's not the shortcut, but it's the shortest distance between 2 points. So I think what you're doing is absolutely wonderful. And I especially like that point of how embraceful the community was, how open they are to help. And then on the other side, also, it doesn't surprise me how when you're opening for female founders or for female entrepreneurs, the reception was lower. And I think we have a long way to go still in that realm. What would you say to female founders or to female entrepreneurs that are moonlighting as something else, but they have that entrepreneurship inside of them? What would you tell them?
Don't be afraid to bet on yourself. I think part of what we're learning and doing these programs, and even, through my past, I've learned that just women, or at least, we'll speak for us, but we like to do things where we want to get it to almost perfect before we show it to the world. And so, maybe we're a little bit more risk averse. I don't know what it is, but I think that's part of what we found. It was enlightening to think that, okay, 2% of VC money goes to women, only 2%. But part of the reason might be that we're not asking for it. We're not thinking bigger. We're not thinking that we can scale our businesses. Maybe we start a company and we think it's going to be just something small, something where you're consulting or something like that. One of the founders we're working with, in working with her, it started as a consulting company, but we were able to help her transform her idea into something that's scalable and turn it into a technology platform. So it's like, think bigger and really just believe in yourself.
Sure.
And it's okay to fail.
Absolutely. And I agree with what Kat has said. I'm a recovering perfectionist. Growing up, you have these standards with if it's not perfect, you don't do it. I'm teaching my daughter that it's okay not to be perfect. Progress over perfection is better than not starting, right?
Yes.
So once we're able to embrace that, I think a lot of this has to do with, their gender norms when it comes to perfection and confidence and all that good stuff. And so I think some of us have been conditioned to think if it's not perfect, don't do it. And that's what holds a lot of us back from speaking up, right? So it's interesting. The things that we may have learned through being brought up, we're changing that narrative for this next generation. I got to tell you right now, my daughter's generation, Gen Z, they speak their truth to power respectfully, okay? And they understand that there are boundaries, but they're also able to advocate for themselves in a way that is so beautiful, because you just don't see a lot of that. And when Kat and I noticed this during the application process, we're like, oh, we need to do more. It's just like when someone applies for a position. Hate to be so gender, with this explanation here, but if a female does not think that she checks all the boxes, she may not apply for the role.
Right.
You may have, a male say, you know what, I'm going to try anyway and see what happens. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, you don't have to check every box, but you have to put yourself out there. And it takes some courage and some vulnerability at times to do that. But I think that's something that once we can start changing that mindset and that perception again of perfection, we're going to start seeing some things change.
For sure. And I think it's also like the concept. The concept is needs to change, because I say over and over again, your startup is not your baby. Like, lose that feeling of protectionism and it's my baby, so it has to be perfect and it has to be nice and I love it. Stop loving it. You can be passionate about it and start seeing it more like a machine, a machine that really works, a machine that really, and when something's wrong with it, it's like, how do I tweak it? How do I perfect it? How do I make it better? And you're able to take criticism. And the other thing is, I say that we're all born ugly. This
Not
is something,
all of us. Hold on, Ahmad. What are you talking about?
I think we are objectively, when we're born, we're like
I know you're not talking about my sons. No.
questionable. So
Sorry, continue.
with that in mind, you also start looking at your startup as it doesn't have to be Apple on day one. It won't be Google on day one. A lot of people are in that mindset that, oh my God, look at these competitors. They map out their competitors. They think, wow, I'm competing with these guys? There's no way. There's no way. And especially if I don't tick all the boxes, I'm not even going to try. So I think these concepts of changing the concept. Entrepreneurship is about doing something ugly at the beginning, not being afraid of being it. Like thinking like it's a baby. It's like not the first day is not the nicest, but then you grow up to be who you're supposed to be and the way you're supposed to be it. So I think it's very important to change the concept and how people talk about it. And I watch Shark Tank again and again, and when I see someone saying like, "It's my baby," I'm like, I wouldn't invest in you. I'm out. Hard pass.
All right, note to self, because there have been times we've heard it's my baby. I'm going to be honest with you. We've heard it's my baby, and we're like, oh, we can relate to that, you know? But I like what you're saying because you're a little more objective. If it's a machine and you're taking the emotion out of actually constructively criticizing this or that. So I understand the separation that you're giving there. That makes sense.
I learned this when I changed from being an entrepreneur to being an investor. Because when you have that investor hat on, you look at things of how they could be better, or how are they going to work? How is this going to do top line, bottom line, costs? You look at these things in a way that how do we make this machine more efficient, easier for the founder, profitable for investors, investable. But the minute that someone is protective of their startup like a baby,
Mama bear.
Yeah.
mama bear,
That's Mama bear.
and this is number one rule of emotional intelligence when you invest is emotions and decisions don't mix. They don't. And when someone gives you criticism, especially someone that has more experience, they might have the denial. They might have like, oh, they don't really know what I'm doing, or they don't really understand where I'm going to. And I've been the victim of this protective loop of being like, and this is one of the protective loop. And then the other one is that my startup is a representation of me, so it has to be perfect. People need to look at that and say, oh, this guy is behind it. And I'm like, now I don't even care what it looks like. I care of how important does it do its job. Am I creating value? If it doesn't create value, you can have the nicest marketing, the nicest website, the nicest social media, and it really doesn't. It doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
See, that's substance. That's substance over sensationalism right there, right?
Yeah.
You're making sure, and that's something that we didn't talk about, but the value proposition is so important. That's something that we talk about as well, as what is your value proposition? And that takes some time to think through. You know, because sometimes you have to remove yourself from the product that you're offering and see it through a different lens. And that's really important.
For sure. And this is a great discussion about value prop, and going into the space where resistant to change, or it's just too expensive. Like real estate, anything is $1,000. Like there's nothing that's like $200 solved. Real estate is the biggest asset class in the world. It's $50 trillion. It's half of, if you equate GDP, real estate is the same amount. Our production of the world is the same amount of real estate value. So prop tech is the most incredible industry if you get 1% of it. But at the same time, it's very, very costly to do. And why did you decide? Obviously, you have your background, but is there a niche or a specific target that you're trying to do? What's the future for Equity Angels?
I think for us, it's most important that we work in sectors that we know well, because again, our biggest offering is our advisory work. So if we don't know the space well enough, how are we supposed to guide you through it? And that's why for us, it was important for us to have PropTech be our go-to-market strategy, so to speak.
Yeah.
But we also, as a collective, have experience in a few other sectors. So we will probably expand to things like film and media, aerospace, defense, and maybe into healthcare. So, you know, there's going to be other sectors we expand into in the next few years. Our goal is by 2030, we help at least 100 underrepresented founders.
Wow. I think that's very noble. And I more than noble, I think it's going to be incredible, because results will speak for themselves, and it'll be like, yeah, the inclusion was just, you know, it was like the blue ocean that nobody was looking at, and the ideas were there, their execution is good. They just needed that little connection and knowledge.
And
That's
it's funny
it.
you say that because when we first launched, there was all these things happening in the DEI space. People were cutting budgets, and you may have heard this. There's a fund called Freedom Fund. There were all these lawsuits against them because they focus on supporting Black female founders, and we were just so upset by the news we're hearing. And then there was like this banter going back and forth between Mark Cuban and Elon Musk about the importance of DEI, or the not so important things about DEI. So it was kind of a scary time actually for us to be starting our business, because there was so much litigation activity going on around the idea of supporting underrepresented founders. But for us, it's not really just about gender or race. It's also about experience. We also want to work with older founders, with vet founders. So it's for us, the bigger importance is that we work with a diversity of founders. It's like we get emails from white male founders asking, "Hey, can I apply for your program?" And it's like, yes, you can.
Absolutely.
For us, go ahead, Kenya.
Why would we decide to exclude anyone, right? And that's kind of our premise is diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, ageism. Like when you hear diversity, I think it conjures race and gender, but there are so many dimensions to diversity that people don't even think about. And we can step away from the diversity piece. It's inclusion, right? Like the inclusion piece, I think, is almost as important as the diversity piece, because someone can invite you to an event, they can invite you to a closed group, but they don't have to be responsive or include you, right? There have been many times, and I think probably all of us can say this, someone's invited you to something. They didn't really want to invite you, but they invited you. But when you got there, they let you know you weren't really invited to be there with the group. So that exclusion part, inclusion is really important to us, because without that inclusion piece, you can feel like you're alone. And we don't want that for anyone. So being able to Kat's point, mention the ageism piece. Ageism is real. When you're younger, you don't think about these things. But the older you get, you start to realize people start to look at you a little bit differently when you're over 30 in the tech space, over 40, over 50, over 60, you're like ancient unless you're a guy. So there are things sometimes that you have to think about when it comes to presenting and understanding that wisdom and experience are just as important as innovative ideas, right? And you can have both, and that's okay. So we've got to get away from this tech bro culture that we see, because that tech bro should be expanded to everyone else as well. And that's what we are on a mission to do.
Love it. And I would, when you were talking, a word came to mind that really is what you're doing, and it's unity. When you have unity, you have power. When you're together, when you have that's when access happens, that when knowledge happens, and it's that cross pollination of ideas, and one founder being great at math will help everybody else, and that person will be helped at their marketing perhaps, or maybe branding, whatever it is. And because you are united, that makes you strong.
Mm-hmm.
That makes you successful. That gives you a place at the table, and that gives you results.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. We earlier talked about why we chose equity as our word, right? It's like
Yeah.
social equity, but also financial equity. We see this as a multi-trillion-dollar problem worth solving. So for us, we're looking to do good, but we also want to do well. We're confident that the types of companies we're investing in are going to do well in the future. There's so many reports out there already that talk about the importance of diversity on your bottom line. McKinsey and Companies is one of the resources that we always turn to. Let me see here. Let me just point out a couple of the stats that we like to share. Underestimated founders was the report from McKinsey last year, and it provided data that achieving parity could yield trillions more dollars in revenue for Black and Latino-owned businesses alone, creating jobs and stimulating the economy. Additionally, founders with diverse gender and ethnic backgrounds deliver 30% higher returns for investors upon exit than their peers. 30% higher returns. So, it's not just about social equity, guys. It's really about unlocking a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity.
For
And
sure.
what Kat's is sharing is, I mean, it's stunning when you hear those numbers. There's a huge opportunity. And something that Kat and I and the advisory group are going to do at the end of the year is create an impact report because results matter. And at the end of the day, the data and what we've learned is going to help us move our mission forward. So we've talked about doing an impact report to really show that we're not just talking about the change, we're seeing the change. Here's what we're doing in terms of producing, economic opportunities in those markets that our founders are in, right? It's contributing to the greater good. This isn't just a cute project, I think some people initially thought, oh, that's a cute little hobby for you guys. It's cute that you're thinking to do something differently. But when you see the numbers and you see the impressive portfolio companies that we're working with, it's not so cute. It's impactful and it's intentional. And when you see this impact report where we're making a difference, we want to continue to make a difference year after year after year. And it's incremental changes. So it could be 1% here, 2% there. As long as we are moving forward and making change, we're happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think going back to that impact report and being just connected with the community, you build up role models. That role model becomes the stepping stone for the next one, and then that's how certain communities have flourished because they have those role models. They look at people that have this. I'm going to talk a lot about maybe Latin America, where your role models are really soccer players, and everybody aspires to become a soccer player, and they don't have that business because it's just not in their purview. But then when you help one person in a community where there was a soccer player, but there's also a entrepreneur and he crushed it, people are going to think, wow, I can also do it. And if he did it, I can do it. And then that fosters much more innovation. Like the network effect, again, is enormous, and the impact is enormous. And I agree that the soft capital is as important as the real capital. And if you have a trillions or trillions of dollars of opportunity in this segment, once you unlock that, the numbers will speak for itself. It's not really like what you said, that hobby. It's not the hobby. It's actually a very smart way to unlock a lot of value. And I'm going to use Peter Thiel's title of his book, which is 0 to 1. 0 to 1 is infinite return.
That's it.
One to 2 is 100%, but 0 to 1 is infinite. So I really, really admire what you're doing.
I appreciate that because we're charging all of our founders to pay it forward. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
You can have the wisdom and the knowledge, but you've got to pass it on. And so we have challenged them to also pay it forward. We're paying it forward the way that we can, and they'll be able to pay it forward better than we can, and so on and so on. And that's when that ripple effect starts, right? Being able to help others. Again, we've talked about representation matters. If you can't see it, sometimes you don't think you can be it. So being able to have these underestimated and underrepresented founders be able to pay it forward, it's just really, it's kind of like I feel like the circle of life here, right? Being able to bring it all home for not only the next generation, but to also help move our industry forward.
And it's like the sense of belonging.
Absolutely.
It's that sense of belonging. Once you have, once you're part of a community, you just feel you belong, and then everybody's going to make their community a little bit better by giving back. And then if you have, I'm sure you're going to reach that target of 100 founders. Those 100 are going to bring thousands probably, or maybe more. It'll be very hard to measure the impact that you're actually doing. This has been incredible. I'd love to end the podcast by asking both of you, what inspires you in the work that you're doing?
Start my kids, everything that I do. I mean, yes, I've been doing this throughout my life, but now that I'm a mom, everything I do is for them, for their future, and I'm creating these opportunities for them.
And let me pull a little bit on that answer before Kenya can reply. What do you hope your kids see in 20 years' time?
I guess firstly, don't want them to have to fight as hard as my husband and I have had to fight for the opportunities that we've been able to work with. And I just also hope for them that they just become great human beings, and do similar work as I'm doing and Kenya and I are doing. I talk to them every day about the work I'm doing at Equity Angels because I want them to know how important this is and how important it is to be open-minded, to help, and how important it is to, to be, to lead with equity and to be inclusive. And I'm starting to see that in them, just as they're in their programs, they're in soccer and golf and leadership programs. So it's great to see that.
Wonderful.
I'd have to say that my daughter is my main inspiration as well. Being a mom has been the most gratifying role I've ever had. There's not a playbook for it. You learn as you go, and you hope that they take the good part of you and and help that inspire who they become. And I could not be prouder of my daughter. She's on the debate team at school, on a national program as well, a national group for the USA development team. And so the reason I bring that up is because I want her to understand that there's nothing she can't do in life. The only person holding you back is that person in the mirror. So if we're able to equip our youth with the understanding that they have opportunity and they have that confidence that starts at home and opportunity to figure out who they want to be on their terms, sky's the limit. So being able to really ensure that my daughter has opportunities that I could not even think of in life, and just make sure that this world's a more fair and equitable place for everyone, regardless of your gender, your race, your background, your zip code, that everyone has the opportunities to be the best version of who they are on their terms.
And just
Wonderful.
to add one final piece on, what
Go
else
ahead.
inspires Kenya and I. Obviously, we're moms, our kids do. But every day we get to meet the most amazing founders. Every day we get to get a peek into so many people's dreams, and visualize how we can help them fulfill those dreams. And I feel like just on a daily basis, that really just keeps us going.
Okay, you're right. We touched on the personal piece of your question, but to Kat's point, we meet incredible people with ideas who are smart, that are really driven to change the world. And they just happen to be changing real estate right now, but who knows what's next. But we meet some amazing people with ideas, and they come to us and say, I can't do it all.
And some of these real estate ideas are going to change the world because some of them deal with sustainability issues, housing affordability. So, some of these real estate solutions are actually solutions that are going to help the world hopefully become a better place.
Absolutely.
That energy is super contagious, and I can feel it from you. I can feel the energy that they have, and I think that we can, like I said before when we spoke privately, any founder is welcome on the Founders Forum. I'm glad to pick their brain, because I'm also I think that that's the best part of the job, is learning from people that have that moment where they're like, whoa, I see this gap in the market, and I can help it, and I can fix it, and I can do something about it, and then be part of their journey and help them in any way that we can.
Sounds like we're going to have Ahmad as a program mentor.
Not only that, but we also have some startup founders that are going to be incredible collaborator partners for you as well.
Happy to meet all of them, and I am a deal junkie. I am.
Be careful what you say. We've got some amazing people in our group.
I live it. I don't. I'm not just saying this. I am a deal junkie, and then I'm the most curious person in the world. So I also want to learn from others and find what they're doing, and then seeing different perspectives. I've noticed that doing this podcast, like you said, I say it openly. I'm doing it selfishly. I do it because I learn. I get to meet great people, and then after I get inspired and I walk back to my desk where I have to do my job, and I'm like, wow, this idea that I learned in this part will really help solve this other problem that I have somewhere else.
It's connecting the dots, being curious always wanting to learn, like you've got the mindset. This is why you're an entrepreneur. You never stop learning. When you
Yeah.
stop learning, it's over.
And it's the best part of the business, you know, it's endless learning. It's the same thing with investing. You never, the minute that you think you know, you get crushed. You have
Absolutely.
to keep your pencil sharp, keep learning.
Oh yeah.
And it was wonderful having both of you here. Thank
thank
you,
you.
thank you so much again. What you're doing is incredible. The impact that you're creating is, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, is access. And you're giving people that didn't have access and a seat on the table. And I'm sure that is in it as if of just how it is abundant. It's just incredible. So keep going. And like I said, open doors here at Founders Forum, and I'm happy to have you as friends.
And
We appreciate that.
yeah,
And
we appreciate the opportunity to talk about equity angels on Founders Forum.
we
Of
appreciate
course,
that.
of
And I
course,
would be
this is
remiss if
wonderful.
I didn't say happy birthday. Today is Kat's birthday. So
Oh
happy
wow,
birthday. And thank you for sharing your special day with us
Of
on the
course,
Founders Forum.
thank
entrepreneur's job is never done.
happy birthday. Big yes, thank you so much again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ahmad.